Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 245.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, and I am your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today, and here's why. We're going to talk about something that we have never done before in a different way. What do I mean? I mean, we all have great ideas. You've got a good business you want to build. You want to make that cash flow happen. Okay, you got a widget, or maybe you're like me. You're like, hey, here is another building that I'd like to take down. Or maybe at some point you go, man, I would love to be able to buy a new shopping center. You might actually be thinking that now because you've grown to the point to where that's the case. However, no matter how many deals you want to do, no matter how much money you think you have, you eventually run out of your own resources, and you need to learn how to access the resources of others. We've talked about many different ways of accessing resources of others, and today is going to be a unique way that you may not have heard of, but is very viable in today's market. I have with me today none other than Richard Wilson. He is the CEO of the Miami multifamily office. It's a $500 million, that's with the B, of family office down in Florida. Is that where you guys are down in Florida, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm just making sure. And here's the interesting thing. He not only runs a family office, but he also has a club of family offices called Family Office Club. Get that. 1,000 offices. He has a best-selling book so that you can learn how to make this thing happen for you. And somehow he manages to have time for a wife and 2 daughters all at the same time. So I think this is going to be interesting today. If you've never heard of the concept of a family office, we're going to find out a lot about it. And more importantly, how it plays a role in your business. So help me welcome Mr. Richard Wilson. Richard, you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here because as we were talking before we started, I called you guys like the unicorn. I mean, many people don't know what a family office is, where to find you, and those 2 words together don't even make sense. Now, I want to make sure that we do answer that. However, before we get there, there's a question that I like to ask everybody. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, of course, you would be one of them, a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, you got Hulk and Batman, Spider-Man and Wonder Woman, all these things. And they, because I think superheroes and entrepreneurs have a lot in common. Occasionally, superheroes and entrepreneurs, we both get dressed up. We put on special clothing. Maybe we don't necessarily wear tights and masks, but we go around and serve people in various different ways and use our special skills to improve their life. Just like superheroes, though, before Peter Parker was, climbing on walls as Spider-Man, he was just a camera guy, so to speak. And I think entrepreneurs also have that same origin story. So before the family offices, before the book, even before the wife and the kids, we want to know, who is Richard Wilson?
Sure. I mean, I started doing risk consulting for publicly traded companies. It was my first job out of school. Paid for my MBA, but was very boring. So then I started raising capital. And I just found that while trying to raise capital from wealth management firms, that there were 500 books on the topic. But the most valuable top 0.1% of the space, called family offices, nobody was writing anything on it. No one was providing me helpful education. So selfishly, I just started, reading everything I could and sharing, some over the internet on a blog at that time with everything I was learning. And every time I met with one, and then everything just took off from there. And, the momentum just took over. But in short, I was just writing and sharing for my own self-teaching of the space. And then it ended up making the industry more efficient so others could learn more about it as well.
Wow, that's okay. I like where this is headed already. So before we go too far, though, for those who may not know, break down what is risk consulting? Because I get the whole boring thing, but for those who may not know, what is that?
So one of the clients was Daimler Chrysler. The car company one was Pacific Corp, an energy company. In short, we mapped out the risk controls, like how does money flow through this publicly traded company, and create flow charts of where there are, controls in place to make sure there's not embezzlement or money being lost or just inefficient processes. So it's a little bit like management consulting, risk consulting, a little bit of Sarbanes-Oxley type control, accounting consulting, all mixed into one. But that was in short what it was.
Got it. So you're good with Excel then, huh?
Excel and PowerPoint and project management type stuff, right?
No doubt. You might actually know how to use Visio. That's amazing.
Right. Yep.
That's amazing. I think we can count all of those people on one hand. Now, when it comes to, you said you started raising capital. What was that for? What were you trying to raise capital to do?
So we had a $30 million hedge fund client, a fund-to-fund with $700 million plus, and then we had a $24 billion separate managed account investment fund. And they were all paying us, $10,000 a month retainers plus upside on capital raised because they were good at the investment shop side, but they wanted help in raising capital. And so, I started out calling through the old money market directory of institutional investment consultants and called through hundreds of them and got many people on the phone through due diligence calls. And long story short, we were really bad at raising capital for quite a while. And when your clients are paying you $10,000 a month, they tend to ask you at first multiple times a quarter, and then multiple times a month, and then eventually multiple times a week, what are you doing, and where are the investors that you promised? And so the pressure built, and we ended up having to get more and more focused on who's actually going to be really investing right now, not in the future, but right now, where are we going to raise capital? And we narrowed it down to wealth management firms, RIA, broker-dealer networks, and then I took initiative to, within that niche it down to calling on family offices. And everything I've done since I started my business is all about operating within a niche, within a niche, within a niche, and just continually, iterating along those paths that you find, whether it's capital raising, marketing, or building a conference business, et cetera.
Well, I like this. So what I hear you saying is you kind of just started and figured it out on the way.
Right. Exactly right.
And so would you describe yourself as a fire, aim, ready kind of person?
For sure. Evan Pagan's a big mentor of mine, and he taught me speed of implementation. And I wrote a book on that in one night after telling my clients about it so many times. One of my clients said, wow, if you believed in it, you'd just write the book in it. And we give it away at some of our events, and it's, we don't make any money off it. But I just love that concept so much. It's one of our core values. We onboarded a new employee today, and I explained why speed of implementation is a core value. And it's all related to the story I just told you, actually.
That's awesome. And I love it because I'm always requesting, demanding, and cajoling and saying, please just move at the speed of instruction. That's the words that we tend to use around here, is because there's so much that's lost, especially in terms of opportunity, when you just don't get into action. Yes, there's going to be some bumps in the road. However, you'll still be further than the guy who's sitting at his desk trying to map it all out from the beginning. No wonder risk consulting was boring for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Far too static.
I don't know how did you even get into, why was that even ever on the table?
The day out of my undergrad, I was making more than my professors were. My first job out of my undergrad from a no-name state university, and I made $78,000 my first year, and I was making $100,000, second or third year out of school. So I sucked it up and worked the overtime, and the money was good enough that I was able to put up with the pain. So.
Yes, I got you. Golden handcuff syndrome. Got it. Right. So this brings up an interesting question, though, because there's a point in every superhero / entrepreneur's life where they realize, hey, I got a special skill. And then you have to make this decision to actually pursue it. So if you were working already, how did you, discover that, I might be able to do this on my own?
Well, the interesting thing is I went from risk consulting to capital raising and took a cut from making six figures down to a $55,000 guaranteed, but I thought I had upside on raising the capital. And I really was just tired of being judged based on my age. At that point, I was very young, and even though I was making six figures, I could tell I was being judged based on my age. And I said, well, I know I can kill it and just work harder than the person next to me. So I want something where it doesn't matter how old I am. If I bring meat to the table, then I'm getting a chunk of that meat. And so I went to commercial real estate or capital raising, chose capital raising. And then when I went to start my own business, we had just started to raise a lot of capital the 4 months before that with some new strategies that we were trying, and basically, took a pay cut down to nothing. So I kept on going down. But then, our first year in business, we did, 7 months, we did 150K. The next year we did 350, and then 700, and then we got to $1 million a year in about 4 years into the business. And so luckily it all paid off, but definitely there's some leaps of faith there multiple times.
Indeed. Now, you mentioned something that, a number of our students and real estate entrepreneurs we'll say they don't have gray hair yet. So, and they may not be as seasoned in life. And you said something that I find interesting because because I get the question all the time, Jay, am I too young to do this? Is that what you meant by judged based on your age?
Yeah, I think you should forget that you think you're too young to do anything. It's complete garbage. I think that in some positions where you're not paid on a performance fee or not paid based on bringing in a new client and sharing on that gross revenue, that's where you can get killed, because people can keep you in a box and they'll say, oh yeah, I'll bump them up and that'll keep them loyal, and I'll get them on some 12-year track to actually making really good money. I think instead you need to be in a place where if you bring meat to the table, you are guaranteed a carved off piece of that meat, and that's how you get paid a lot. And if you look around at people that make a lot, the highest paid attorneys, they get a percentage of the winnings on the cases they close. The highest paid investment professionals typically are hedge funds, sometimes they're private equity fund managers on the billionaire list. They're getting a percentage of the takedown, a performance fee on a hedge fund when they have positive performance. So, it's not only when you're young that it's a great thing. If you know you have the goods, then when you're young, I think it's the best way to do real well.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I just know that many of those listening they get this, thought in their head that no one's going to, who would sell me their house? I'm quote unquote, I'm only 22. I'm only 23. I just got out of school. And I'm like, none of that matters if you can solve the problem.
For sure it does not, especially when you're dealing with something like a tangible product, like a house. Like, a couple of quick stories on this is, when I was just 23 years old, I wrote my first book because Jeffrey Gitomer said, I'll give you my best secret out of 10 best-selling books. I know none of you will copy it. Write every day on your industry, and you'll be a regional expert within a year, a national expert in 2 years, and a global expert in 3 years. And I didn't know what to write a book on, but I said, I'm going to be the SOB that actually follows his advice. And so I wrote a book, and I was only 23. And then that helped me get that consulting job that I didn't have the experience for, but I convinced them, just give me a shot. They gave me a 3-week trial. It worked out. And, I think authority is taken, not given. And you take it with hard work and focus on a little niche sandbox that you can just, pour so much value into that others can't compete with the amount of value that you're providing in that niche area.
Agreed. I am so excited. We are kindred spirits, my friend. So with this being the case, I guess the question comes, how do you muster the courage? How do you face the fact that half the world, 90% of the world is going one direction. You're going to go this completely opposite. I'm assuming that maybe mom, dad, somebody said, "Hey, Richard, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You went to school, you got all these things. Why are you trying to leave this behind?"
Yeah, definitely. There's actually only one person, one of my friends from Boston, Douglas McLean, who I remember the exact day that he called me. I was taking some evening classes at Harvard, and he called me, and I was walking out of the computer lab, and he said, no, don't take that job offer in Connecticut. You need to start your own business instead, in this family office niche. You have something here. And everybody else, from girlfriend to parents to family members and best friends, were telling me it'd be crazy to start my own thing because I have no income. Like in Harvard Square, my rent was $1,000 a month. I had $800 in the bank account. But I just went for it. From a young age, I'd always wanted to have my own business, and I had started 2 or 3 businesses in high school. Everything from selling my friends in high school's parents on long distance telephone service through a multi-level marketing thing to selling Christmas wreaths and refereeing soccer games. So like that hunger was always in me. And I think that was part of it. I knew I wanted to get there, so I was willing to do, whatever it took to get it done.
I hope for those of you that are listening, for the number, I mean, we've interviewed so many entrepreneurs now, and you hear the same stories from selling candy to going door to door, doing lawn mowing. Now, did you say reffing soccer?
Yeah.
Okay, that might be the first time we've heard that one. But we've got all kinds of different things, and you can see and hear the clues, the passion and the desire. And then at some point, you're faced with this challenge. It's either, okay, you're going to go this one direction with absolutely no guarantees, or you're going to go this other direction. So I'm assuming you and the one supporter you had are still close.
Right, we for sure are. I told him that I owe him, pretty much for life. I just spoke to him last month actually to get a reference check on someone in Boston. But as the saying goes, it's like use too much, it's kind of corny. You got to risk it to get the biscuit. And if you look at who's paid the most, it's people that took risk or they are paid based on performance. So I think that that's a big part of what I believe in. And I think that if you know that you care and you care more than your competitors, then you'll be able to produce the value, and you should just be confident in that. So all those people listening that are on the edge should listen to your advice and what I'm saying right now and take the plunge and, plow forward with confidence.
Excellent. I love that. Now, let's address the subject that I know many of them are like, yeah, Jay, I would love to plunge forward, but where's the money coming from? So as we get to that, can you describe to us in how you see what is a family office?
So a family office is really a full balance sheet, holistic wealth management solution for an individual. And there's really only two types, so it's pretty simple. There's a single family office, which would be, I sold my business for $400 million, so I need my own single family office. Or there's a multifamily office, which is essentially just a wealth management firm, but it has much more holistic, full-rounded services, incorporating trust and estate, insurance, multi-generational planning. And they might have 200 clients or 20 clients. It's not just serving one family. So those are the two main types.
Got it. So what is their function in the role? Like, why would a real estate entrepreneur, how does a real estate entrepreneur and a family office, what ways could they work together?
So one way is if you become ultra wealthy and invest in real estate, you might want a family office to make sure your taxation and everything is incorporated and planned from a 360-degree view, so you don't sell a piece of real estate one day after a tax law change, or that about what a cost segregation engineering study is, and you might be able to depreciate a huge percentage of your building in the first year instead of depreciating it slowly. Like that alone, could put you on the right side of a deal. And so that's one reason why you might have one. But the more important question that I'm sure people want to hear about is, how do you actually interact with one? How do you raise capital from one? And really, family offices, since they're led by typically very smart, experienced entrepreneurs, they're business people. They're looking for savvy business deals. The single family office I help run, they made a $36 million investment in a piece of real estate debt over the holidays. They also have $500 million of real estate assets in place, including an office building, some CVS retail, commercial real estate. And they also have 19 different fuel stations, gas stations under ownership. So that's just an example of what a portfolio might look like of a $500 million net worth single family office. And importantly, like I mentioned at the very beginning, if you go and you try to sell a real estate investment, whether you're trying to do it as an independent sponsor or a real estate investment fund or just a guy who's developing real estate, and you try to sell that to a big, like Harvard Endowment Fund or Stanford Endowment Fund, it is very difficult. They have 1,000 check boxes to meet. If you go to your local, family office and you develop a real relationship with them, and they know their local market backwards and forwards, they might really agree with your investment thesis. And as long as you help them manage that downside of their investment, they could be open to very creative terms. It could range from gross revenue royalties to a debt or convertible debt or equity play on something that you're working on.
Absolutely. And this is why I get excited. Now, just for those, so that everyone is on the same page, when he says investment thesis, I want you guys to think investor identity, the reasons why you're doing these types of deals. So if I hear you correctly, though, Richard, what you're really saying is, when you need a lot of money and you may not want to jump through all the hoops that the we'll say Wall Street would put you through, you have the ability here to do the same and similar types of funding, but be more creative with more flexibility.
Right. That's correct. And we did a benchmark study on 180 family office respondents globally, and we found that those who did invest in real estate had a 25% allocation to the space. And they prefer local real estate investments, but families also like to be diversified as a general rule. So I think that this is meaningful for someone, whether you're based in Turkey or Tokyo or London or New York or Miami or a smaller city. There's family offices everywhere. There's over 10,000 of them globally. And the industry is really thriving and growing. So you'll start hearing about this term more and more in the Wall Street Journal, the magazines you read, and in your social circles, most likely.
Excellent. Perfect. Now, some of the deals that I know that I've been looking at and doing recently, they just have investment minimums, 5 million, 10 million, what have you. I'm assuming you guys have that some offices have a similar criteria?
Right, that's correct. I just got off the phone, 4 or 5 minutes ago before we started here with a $200 million single family office that I'm head of direct investments for. And we're building them a public facing website so that people can see exactly what their investment mandate is. And it's really important that family offices communicate that to the public. Like, we only want something that is at a $20 million equity check needed or higher. We don't want to waste our time on due diligence on small deals. If you talk to a $1 billion net worth family, that's typically the threshold is $20 million per check that they write, per investment they make. Will they make smaller ones? Yes, but they like to spend $20 million per investment or more. For more common family offices, that would be someone worth $100 million to $500 million, or much more common. And those typically like to start at a $3 to $5 million investment. But I've seen families of that size do as small as a $250,000 or a $500,000 investment if it's a way to get to know a counterparty.
Excellent. And I'm just here. And here's the point. What I'm trying to bring to everybody's attention. There are so many ways to get access to money. So I'm just going to make an assumption, Richard. You let me know if this is true. I'm going to assume that in general, for the family office industry, they have more money than deals at almost every time. I'm hoping that as you're listening right now today, guys, that you're learning something completely different, completely new. Most importantly, you probably didn't know these guys existed. So I don't really want to delay much longer. The one thing I do want to do is make sure that everybody knows, if you want to get a free copy of my book, Cash Flow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy, just go over to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book. Or for those of you on a mobile device, just text 72,000. Text to 72,000. The keyword is book. Text book to 72,000 and you can have a copy of my book, Cash Flow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. And for those of you who like audio, there's a special offer for it just right behind there. Anyway, let's get back to it quickly.
That's correct. More money than what they consider great deals. The more public the family, obviously an Oprah Winfrey, a Richard Branson family office, they get deluged with deals. They are the anomaly. They are the 1% that you've actually heard of. Everyone else who didn't make their wealth by being famous or while being famous has problems getting access to excellent quality deal flow. And I always talk about like a totem pole. If you get access to 1,000 deals a year, your top 1% are not going to be, your top 1% are going to be pretty good compared to someone who only sees 100 deals a year. That means their top 1% is one deal, instead of 10 deals to choose from. So, families have the problem of not being shown enough deal flow. And, at the expense of rambling a little bit, I would say that one really important takeaway for people listening to this is that family offices complain that people pitch them without listening. And it's really important you listen first, because it'll help you get educated on the family office space in general. It'll help you earn their respect, and it'll allow you to take the hour that you could talk about your investment and narrow it down to the 15 minutes that is what they want to hear, the part of the story that's most important to them. And you can craft business terms that make sense with their investment thesis and investment preferences. So many people just cold call, pitch, leave voicemails, cold emails. You're never going to grow a referral network that way. So you're really shooting yourself in both feet when you're just pitching and not listening first to an investor.
Oh my goodness. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we did not have a conversation before, and I did not tell him to say that. Here's why. He just gave you exactly why you must do your investor identity interviews so that you know exactly what to say, craft the customize that your package, whatever it is that you're doing to make sure it meets their identity, i.e. criteria. Otherwise, you just heard him say it. I couldn't have said it any better. And that's what I get excited about is when you follow the system works regardless of where you're seeking the resources. So what are some of the typical due diligence requirements? Like, I know that I know it's just different. I mean, like some people want to exclude themselves because I know someone somewhere is saying, okay, yeah, they got money. That's wonderful. That's great. But I got bad credit or I had this or they're trying to find a way to prevent themselves from calling you. And I'm trying to give them every reason to call you. So what are some of those due diligence requirements that, that actually, you guys are looking for, but most people can still pass?
The most important thing that sounds soft, but is really important is, will a very savvy, sharp person think that the business terms you're presenting them make sense at all? So many people pitch things that are so one-sided that, of course, most savvy investors are going to say no. Like one person pitched us a deal where the family I represent would provide them with debt to start a business, and they would give us a percentage return on that debt. But it was a new business. It was very risky, and they didn't want to give any equity. They only wanted to pay off the debt and have us go away. So just make sure that if you are more generous, you're obviously much more likely to close the deal. It seems obvious, but a lot of people pitching haven't really thought about how that pitch can be perceived, especially if you have a lot of deals to choose from. Other things I think that's most important is that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And since family offices are so long-term minded, the way that you dress, like I usually wear a 3-piece suit. If I leave Key Biscayne, which is like this little island I live on 10 minutes from Miami, and if I leave the island where everyone just wears like golf clothes, I usually put on my 3-piece suit or a really nice, Hugo Boss suit. And we host our events in like JW Marriott. I stay, and meet with people at either the Harvard Club or the Ritz-Carlton. And like I take time, if we're going to put something out, to do an excellent job and do something thoughtful and deliver a lot of value, because the client, the way that you speak to them, and if you listen or not, or if you're trying to sell them quick, like an automobile salesperson, or if you take shortcuts, they're going to think you're always going to take shortcuts, and they want someone who has integrity and is going to do something the high quality, integrity way in everything they do, so that they know you can be relied upon, and if they refer you to someone, that they can rely upon that being a high quality interaction. So I think that that's something that pertains to every type of investment sector. And then, when we move beyond that, I think that obviously it helps if there is a track record that the team has done this before. If it's a brand new idea, you better be giving the family office a ton of equity or protection or guarantees in some way in terms of assets being put up against the idea, et cetera, because I think that a lot of people come with ideas that are not proven, and then they wonder why it's not successful. I think it's, when you're starting out, you have to start somewhere, but you need to de-risk it for the other party.
I like the way you said that. And so the interesting thing, though, I hope everybody picked up on it, is he said team. You didn't say the entrepreneur themselves. You, in general, expect there to be a team in place to actually execute this vision.
Right, for sure. And if there's not, then say there's not. The worst is when someone says, yeah, we have this team, and then all the photos, it's one guy with like, a cropped photo where there's like the hand on his shoulder and you can't even see the arm. It's obviously from a wedding or something. And then someone has a color photo and a black and white photo. And it's like, these people aren't actually on his team. These are like LinkedIn friends that hopefully he's met in person once in his life. So, pay some guy on Craigslist $100 to shoot some black and white semi-pro photos. Make sure people are committed to your team, and just disclose to the other party, here's where I'm at. I'm early, and that's why I'm giving you great terms, and just be authentic. And I find anytime that you're debating upon what to do, you just need to find the authentic path of beefing up your advisory board or finding someone who will work for you on a committed basis and giving them big upside to de-risk that time investment on their part.
Absolutely understood. So, the more and more I keep talking to you, and for those that are listening and hopefully watch, I think it feels like I'm on an episode of Shark Tank. To be honest, I don't know if you watch the show, but that's what it feels like right now.
Right.
Is
right?
That,
yeah.
it feels the exact same. What I'm assuming is just basically if you can pull off what they do there, you're saying just bring that.
Mostly, yes. I think a lot of families like to see things that are mid-stage. They like to find things that have been able to climb out of the ocean and actually take some steps on the sand. If it's a whole new embryonic idea, you're going to have to go to a couple of local families who made their money either in the industry that you're in, because even though you're early stage, they'll see your thesis hopefully and agree with it. But if it's in an industry and they made their money somewhere else and you're in biotech and they made their money in real estate, good luck on convincing them to take an early stage bet on you. So I do think that a lot of families would rather see things developed that are break even or profitable at the very least, if not producing several $100,000 in EBITDA or $500,000 in EBITDA. So I think that is important for people to know, but there's so many families out there, you can always find one that can relate to your area of expertise, I believe, if you hunt around and work hard in doing so.
I just had a thought, Richard. You probably watch Shark Tank for a completely different reason.
Well, the structuring of deals, Mr. Wonderful is wonderful, and I like his the gross revenue royalty deals is something that family offices do not do enough, and it de-risks and gets the little money soldiers to come back into their bank account faster and allows for that gravy upside to be kind of de-risked faster. So I really like debt plays. I think some of the smartest people in the investment world play on the debt side, and then they get to collect first on the equity side if things do go south and can get equity kickers. But I would say that like the three shows I would recommend watching to, they're actually fun to watch, but increase your investment savvy, would be Shark Tank, The Profit, and then there's a show called Suits. I can't remember if it was an HBO special or something else, but there's like 3 or 4 seasons of this show called Suits. And in that show, they're always thinking 6 or 7 steps ahead, which allows them to, one, add a lot of value to their clients and always be ahead of the game and look like the smartest person in the room. And then 2, it allows them to navigate deals and get deals closed that otherwise would have gone south because they're thinking about it like a chess game and not checkers.
Yes, absolutely. You keep taking the words out of my mouth, and it's like, has he been listening to me this entire time? And because I often tell people that real estate is a lot like chess or business in general. Once you know how the pieces move, it's up to you to develop your open, mid, and end game and communicate that message. And you're saying the exact same thing. So is there particular, you having the global view of the family office, industry, is there a particular type of real estate that they prefer over others? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So basically, the most common investment, the classic, is going into multifamily apartment buildings. And maybe they'd be okay for smaller units in an institution at 50 or 100 units, but many do go for 200, plus unit multifamilies. But oftentimes, they'll have a specific strategy of either local or, very high quality, beachfront or distressed, et cetera. I think hotels and self-storage is what's on the second level. And hotels have the sexiness, self-storage kind of act like multifamily sometimes and are not seen as very risky. And then I would say underneath that is office, and then below that would be industrial real estate. But to your point, I'm actually embarrassed to say, and I apologize for this, but I actually haven't listened to your podcast yet. I promise I will going forward. But I've got my family office podcast, which we're growing, and I think we speak the same thing because we speak the same language. Because there's this like Sun Tzu version of Chinese that successful capital raisers speak. Because there's this complex combination of things needed to survive in this jungle of working with investors and navigating deals. So I think that's why we speak the same language. And I think it's even more beneficial that we do, and I haven't listened to all of your episodes. That just shows the genuine, authentic advice that you've been giving your audience. And I've come up from a totally different route in a different geography with different clients. And I guess we're saying many of the same things to our audiences.
Yeah, I can't wait until we begin to get some of the feedback from our regulars, because especially our members on the inside who are participating in some of our trainings that we do. Because I'm just like, I keep tilting my head to the side, like, did he just say that? Did he just say that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's exactly what I've been saying to people, and here you are doing the exact same thing. Because I get the question. Because, where we started from, and you and I couldn't have started from two more opposite spectrums here. Mm-hmm. And and people ask me all the time, but Jay, will that work if I want to get, $1 million from a person, 10 million, 5 million? I'm like,
Right.
yes, it's the exact same. There's still a person in the middle of all of this, regardless of the dollar amount. And here you are doing exactly that. So I'm just excited that this is happening right here and everyone's getting to participate.
Yeah, maybe we could, talk offline about it. I would love to maybe have you speak at one of our events. We probably have a lot of crossover and actually, sharing more resources. We sometimes I do like this 8-hour just kind of plow through of content. I don't do them anymore, so I'm for sure not like selling that here. But I used to do these 8-hour capital raising workshops that were just like ridiculously intense. And it sounds like you do some of that type of stuff. So I'd love to coordinate on that. And I think that we probably share similar mentors like Brian Tracy and Eben Pagan and Dan Kennedy and Ogilvy. And, some of those people have really been, like Vern Harnish, have really been massively influential in my business. And I'm sure that's part of where the crossover comes from. But I get similar questions, not only with, do family offices invest in biotech? Like, yes, some of them do. The ones who made money in biotech, the ones who are in Silicon Valley, the ones who are familiar enough with it. And so the answer is always yes. If you're asking yourself right now, listening to this, I don't know if a family office would invest in development of single family homes. Yes, my $200 million client is hung up the phone with. That's how they made all their money. They would for sure be open to, such a proposal. And the other thing that always comes up is that when I tell people that you need to define your sandbox so that you're not on the beach in Rio during Carnival with 1 million people, and you instead have 1 or 2 people in the little niche that you have carved out for yourself, at most, you might carve out a niche that has nobody, then you're allowed to kill it in the niche and provide more value to that person. Because if you have arthritis in your knees, you don't want to go to the pharmacy and get a blue pill. You want fast-acting knee arthritis medicine, and you want to appear to the most valuable niche in your potential marketplace to have that knee arthritis fast-acting pill. And then that's why they'll come into the front door over and over again if you target that right and niche within the niche enough.
Indeed. I'm just getting more and more excited with every word you say. So I know one of the questions that some people are going to either send in, and if I don't ask, is what would you say? I mean, you've worked with a number of them. You've made the phone calls. You've been in the trenches. What's going to be the best way for a real estate entrepreneur or any entrepreneur listening to find and actually begin building that relationship so that they could hopefully actually begin to do business? Is there a formal process? Do we fill out an application? What does it look like?
Right. So it's multifold. In short, I would identify 2 to 3 cities that are either a there and back type flight the same day or a road trip away, including your own city, hopefully, where you can develop relationships with ultra wealthy families in single and multifamily offices. I would narrow it down to 2 to 3 cities and really develop business friends within those family offices and get to know them, and you'll create referral networks, and then you can do something more national. I think that you need to find a way to add value based on your core DNA, and you need to figure out what is the niche client you'll be serving, like your investor avatar, and you match that with your DNA and you localize it and you say, I'm all in on this. I know that no matter how long it takes, if I can dominate this sandbox, the fruits will be bared. Then you can have the work ethic to run circles around your competition. So of course, on the selfish side of things, we have the Family Office podcast. We have our single family office book on Amazon, which is one of the best-selling books in all of wealth management. And it's free on Kindle. When we spent 700 hours writing that thing. And so it's essentially another free resource, just like the podcast. So I'd love people to check those things out, because our whole business model is to be aggressively generous within the sandboxes that we select. And just like you've done here in the podcast, it just creates business friends naturally. So I encourage people to do what you're doing, but within their own sandbox, localize it a bit, and just add value first. Connect people to each other and just know how you can be valuable to them instead of like pitching them on your latest deal.
Indeed. So with that being the case, I know there's more than one person listening right now who wants to know how to specifically track you down and reach out.
Sure. The easiest way is easy to remember website, familyoffices.com. There you can find, our free ebook you can download. You'll find links to, our quarterly family office conferences. You'll find a link to our paperback book on Amazon called The Single Family Office. So just familyoffices.com or checking out our Family Office podcast. And we're happy to be helpful. Anyone in your audience, say that you are a subscriber or listen to this interview, and I'll make sure and get back to you, the same business day or within 24 hours if I can at all.
And just so that we're clear, you are not limited to, or are you limited to just United States, or can you transact or deal with international real estate as well?
We work with international clients as well. So at our last, 550 person event last month, we had probably 20 different countries participating, as participants and speakers on stage. So the industry is very global, and it's actually, while we're lucky in the United States, it's a number one place where billionaires and centimillionaires like to migrate to. And there's more billionaires in New York than the whole country of Canada, and there's far more in the US than anywhere else in the world. So we're fortunate to have that. But the fortunate part, if you're listening to this from, somewhere else, such as Greece or Italy, is that the family office industry is more new. So you're more ahead of the curve, and you can get on top of this trend before other people have ever heard about it.
Awesome. Now, I've got a final question for you, and I think I'm just going to take a stab and go, he's probably going to say something I've already said before, because you keep saying these things and I love it.
Sure.
So let's pretend for a moment that you're in front of this would-be, superhero, this would-be entrepreneur who believes, I think I've got my thing. I think I'm ready. They're standing in front of the superhero outfit store right now, picking out their tights and going, okay, I'm going to do this thing. However, Richard, in the back of their mind, they still have that voice. And that voice. You've heard that voice. You have done battle with that voice many a day. They've got that voice in the back of their head that just seems to be persistent. And they've got those friends who are telling them things that they don't necessarily want to hear right now. And they still want to move forward, though, but they're kind of stuck. What would you say to that person?
I would say avoid risks that result in big debt. I'm not big on debt, and I think it's stressful, and it does the opposite of freeing you. I would say be very careful what partners you select and make sure something can be unfolded easily if you start to divert views. I would also say that as you go into something, see how you can de-risk it while staying in your current position. If there's a way to stay in your current position and do something that is allowed by your employer, like, I just want to write articles. Do you mind if I write articles? And you're able to own that content, then that's a way to de-risk it. While I was raising capital, I was writing an article a week, and I started getting 10 hits a day, 40 hits a day to the website. And by the time it came to the point where I quit my job at that capital raising position, we're getting 3,000 to 5,000 hits every single day. And Investopedia and Forbes were paying me per article. So I knew, even though I didn't have enough cash in the bank to pay my rent that month, that I would be able to, if nothing else, I'd just write more articles, charge for advertising on the blog, or get one of those consulting clients, because people have been calling me for months. So I had de-risked it a bit, even though I was jumping from a guaranteed salary to nothing. I think that you can de-risk it by building up resources and just knowing what your game plan is, so that the day you step out of your safety zone, you know what the process is and the steps, and anything you could pre-build before you step your foot out that door, you might as well do that and enjoy the current income while you start to build your on-ramp to what you really want to be doing.
Excellent. I definitely just want to say that I appreciate the work, the inroads, the education, all the things that you have put together to make accessing and finding the unicorn in the woods that much easier for all of us. And thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge here with us at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you as well.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? You probably already know. In fact, some of you've already gone over to Amazon. You've already downloaded the Kindle book. You have already been on the website, and you are in action towards this goal. No longer can you tell me the money isn't out there. Oh, it's there. You just need to get your deal in front of them, and now you know how to do it. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.